Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Amanda Gorman, it is such a pleasure. First of all, how do you feel?
I feel just so overjoyed and so grateful and so humbled. You know, I came here to do the best with the poem that I could, and to just see the support that's been pouring out. I literally can't absorb it all, so I'll be processing it for a while.
Can you just explain why this message today? How did you go about crafting this?
Right. Well, you know, I did a lot of research ever since I found out in late December that I was going to be the inaugural poet. So that was making sure I read all of the previous inaugural poems, really doing a deep literature dive of other orators who I look up to, whether it be Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, and how they speak to a nation that can feel very divided. And I was around halfway through that process and kind of that research when the January 6th insurrection happened at the Capitol. And I'm not going to say that that completely, you know, derailed the poem, because I was not surprised at what had happened. I had seen the signs and the symptoms for a while, and I was not trying to turn a blind eye to that. But what it did is it energized me even more to believe that much more firmly in a message of hope and unity and healing. I felt like that was the type of poem that I needed to write, and it was the type of poem that the country and the world needed to hear.
Were there particular images from January 6th that, you know, that were kind of foremost in your mind, or was it just the totality of the horror of the insurrection?
I'm a poet, so often I don't work in images, I work in words and text. And so what I was actually doing is, while keeping my mental sanity, looking through the tweets and the messages and the articles and seeing what stood out. And there was a line in the poem that you might have heard, which is, we've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it. And I got that actually from looking through a few tweets and a lot of people being like, wow, this is what happens when people don't want to share the country with the rest of us. And so I took that, which often became a meme on Twitter, and I put that in the poem.
It's so interesting to me that you're not thinking visual, that it's not the images that motivate you, it's the text, the words that you come across.
Right. To me, words matter, and I think that's kind of what made this inauguration that much more sentimental and special. We've seen over the past few years the ways in which the power of words has been violated and misappropriated. And what I wanted to do is to kind of reclaim poetry as that site in which we can re-purify, re-sanctify not only the Capitol building, which we saw violated, but the power of words, and to invest that in kind of the highest office of the land.
I want to read just the last few lines of your poem, and I apologize because I'm not going to do it justice as it should be done, but you said, "We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge, battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." I got shivers when you said that. I mean, that is what it takes, isn't it? It's bravery. It takes bravery to see it and to be that light.
Right. Well, I think that recitation was great. I should have had you up there with me. That was amazing. But I'm so grateful you brought up the last line. It's something that I've been seeing a lot of people repeat. And to be honest, I was concerned of whether I should include that last line of "be it" at all. I was kind of deliberating between see it, be it, free it. And then I said, you know what, we need all of these things at once. We need that cacophony. We need to realize that hope isn't something that we ask of others. It's something that we have to demand from ourselves. And that's what I wanted the poem to end on.
I had a form of dyslexia as a child and a kind of a minor speech issue, so slight little stutter. And Joe Biden has talked about this. I read that you had some form of a speech impediment or may still have, which is obviously something you would have in common with President Biden. He's talked often about overcoming it. And I understand that you use writing to cope with it, to share your voice that way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I'm proud to be in the speech difficulty club with you and President Biden and also Maya Angelou. Growing up, I had a speech impediment, and for me, it wasn't stutter. It was, dropping a whole swath of letters in the alphabet. So for, I want to say, most of my life, up until 2 or maybe 3 years ago, I couldn't say the letter R. Even to this day, sometimes I struggle with it, which is difficult when you have a poem in which you say rise like 5 times. And so for me, I used writing, one, as a form of self-expression to get my voice on the page, but then it also metamorphosized into its own speech pathology. So the more that I recited out loud, the more in which I practiced spoken word in that tradition, the more I was able to teach myself how to pronounce these letters, which for so long had been my greatest impediment.
I understand. Was there? I know there were some Hamilton references today. I caught as a big fan of Hamilton, and I know Lin-Manuel Miranda also caught them because I know I saw those tweets going around. But I understand. Is there something about some of the stuff that Aaron Burr said in Hamilton that you use for your speech?
Right. So like I said, it was as recent as college that I was still struggling to say the R sound. And so one thing that I would do to try to train myself to say it is I would listen to the song Aaron Burr, Sir, which is just packed with R's. And I would try to keep up with Leslie Odom Jr. as he's, doing this amazing rap. And I'd say, if I can train myself to do this song, then I can train myself to say this letter. And so that's been a huge part of my own speech pathology. It's why I included it in the inaugural poem. Also beyond that, I think Hamilton is just such a great kind of American cultural piece of what it means to be a better country. It was really hard for me not just to copy and paste my shot and email it to me. Here's my poem.
No one would have noticed. Yeah.
No one would have noticed. But I cite my sources, which is why I tweeted about Hamilton. I'm really proud that I was able to incorporate that in there.
I understand you have a mantra that you say before every reading you give. Can you reveal what that is?
Certainly. I do it whenever I perform, and I definitely did it this time. And I close my eyes and I say, I'm the daughter of Black writers. We are descended from freedom fighters who broke their chains and changed the world. They call me.
Wow. Wow, you're awesome. I'm so transfixed. Liza, your mom must just be so proud of you and your whole family, and you must be so proud of them.
Yeah, I say, I'm proud of us because this really takes a village. I have so many supporters, so many organizations that have supported me, whether it be Urban Word, the National Youth Poet Laureate Program, or White Girl LA, where I got a lot of free creative writing resources when I was that skinny girl with a speech impediment who needed a mentor. My mom is actually filming me right now as I do this interview. So like I said, it takes all of us being present and lifting me up to climb this mountain.
Well, Mom, congratulations. You've certainly done an amazing, amazing job. Lastly, Hillary Clinton tweeted a picture of you two from the inauguration today saying, wasn't at the Amanda Gorman's poem just stunning? She's promised to run for president in 2036, and I, for one, can't wait. President Gorman has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Madam President Gorman, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people like the sound of that today. Thank you so much. It's just thrilling to see such a bright talent suddenly burst like a supernova. So thank you.
Thank you so much.